It's summertime, and so it's hot. So people want to drink cold things, which isn't always good if you sell hot things. And so iced coffee, cold brew, that's a thing. Now, I was sent this by the lovely people at Coldwave. So I didn't pay for it, but they're not paying for me to make this video. It is an incredibly simple thing. It is a jug, just a simple plastic jug, and this thing, which I don't know what you call this thing, but essentially you put this thing in the freezer and it's got lots of little tubes, sort of square tubes, full of something, I suspect maybe distilled water, maybe something else, and you make this minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is what a typical domestic freezer might run at. And the way it works is pretty simple. You're gonna put hot coffee in here, you're gonna put the little freezy thing in the top. This is a pretty simple idea. If you take something that weighs about 800 grams and it's minus 20 degrees Celsius, and then you take about 450 grams of liquid coffee, which is about 16 ounces, which is what they say this is, add them together, and the cold thing is going to make the hot thing cold, right? And that's going to take a little time. Heat transfer is about two things. It's about the difference in temperature between the two things. So we've got minus 20 and maybe 65, 70 degrees Celsius for brewed coffee. So there'll be some pretty rapid transfer there. And then it's about surface area, which is about, you know, making sure as much of the cold thing is in contact with the hot thing as possible. Hence, all of these little tubes inside of this thing to maximize surface area. So unsurprisingly, this should work incredibly well because of tons of surface area and a big difference in temperature between the two things. So why would I use this? Well, there are two schools out there about how you might make cold coffee. And the first school is cold brew, where you brew coffee in a low temperature environment. And I dislike that for two reasons. Firstly, I don't think you do a very good job of extracting the coffee with cold water, and I don't particularly like the flavor profile that you get. And secondly, with a lack of temperature, the extraction takes much longer, and by and large, cold brew to me just tastes oxidized. I find it quite unpleasant, and it's just not something I ever really want to drink. The other choice, I guess, is to take a hot thing, so brew a fresh, hot, delicious cup of coffee, and then make it cold very quickly. You might use ice, like an iced Americano, or you might use ice at the bottom of a pour over and just use less water. But the downside of using less water and sort of adding the missing water in as ice is that you have less water to do your extraction work with. So the idea of having a really good cup of coffee and just rapidly making it cold is quite appealing. That's how this works. And so what we should probably do is brew some coffee. Okay, so we brewed some coffee, and I guess it's time to drink some. Now, it got down to about 5 degrees Celsius pretty quickly. It's now gonna be a little bit colder. It's sat here a little while. And, 4 degrees C, it's kind of fridge temp. So, unsurprisingly, it doesn't cheat the laws of physics, and it does in fact work. Now, this is a pretty light, delicate coffee from Ethiopia that I really like cold. It gets a little bit more tea-like, I guess. So let's have a taste. It doesn't taste of cold brew, doesn't taste oxidized. So, unsurprisingly, in many ways, the coffee coming out of it tastes quite good. So let's wrap up with a few things that I like and a few things that I don't like. First and foremost, I like this because it is simple. There's two pieces, it's very easy to use. As long as you can brew tasty hot coffee, you can therefore make very easy cold coffee. Secondly, it's not particularly expensive. It's about $40. I can't work out what that is these days in various currencies, but I'm sure you can. So it's not a lot of money. Maybe it's a little bit expensive, but it's not crazily expensive by any stretch for what it is. But ultimately I like it because it does no damage to the coffee that you brew. It just makes it cold pretty quickly, and I like that a lot. Things that I don't like. Now, for me in the UK, we don't have massive kitchens, especially in London. We don't have massive freezers. For me, at home, this is just too big to leave in my freezer the whole time. Like, it is pretty bulky, it's pretty big. If you have an enormous freezer, fine, no problem for you, but for me, kind of a sticking point. Honestly, it's not particularly beautiful. I mean, it's functional, I'll give it that. And you know, maybe it's the size of like a US fridge door, and that's kind of how that's working, but I don't really know why it's the size and the shape that it is. And I guess the last thing is, sure, domestically, half a liter of coffee is fine. You know, that's 2 people, that's a good serving for both. And you can, you know, brew more in theory if you start with a relatively cool coffee in terms of how hot it is. If you let it cool a little bit before you ice it up, then yeah, you could brew 2 batches, and that's a decent amount. It's not a solution for cafes, not if they have any sort of volume there. So in summary, the coffee coming out is as good as the coffee you put in. It's pretty simple, it's pretty effective. $40, it's your call. I'm grateful that they sent it to me. I'll probably leave it in the office, in the freezer in the office, and now and again, use it to make some cold coffee. If you like, you know, a daily iced coffee, then this might work well for you.